Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Cannabis Accounting Podcast. I have with me today a good friend of mine, Adam Rothstein, the founder of the Plug Society. As we like to say, it's the Angie list of the cannabis industry. Adam, I'll kick it over to you to just introduce yourself to the audience and who might not know who you are.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ray. I really appreciate it, man. My name is Adam Rothstein, the founder and CEO of the Plug Society. As you alluded to there, we're building the Angie's list of cannabis vendors for the cannabis industry. So that includes a trusted vendor network, project planning tools, project management tools, and a deal-based rating system, all aimed at really centralizing and cleaning up our supply chain.
Nice, nice.
The
Like,
quickest way I could sum it up.
yeah, we'll get into a little bit more of the details as we get into it. But it is solving a real problem in the industry. But I guess as always, I like to back it up a little bit. You're a smart guy. You could have done a lot of things with your life. What made you interested in the cannabis industry, and how did you find your first steps into this culture and burgeoning business?
I took a pretty wild road. I was an entrepreneur early with cannabis in Michigan. The day after I smoked it, I went and emptied my Detroit Red Wings change thing and a Walmart Coinstar thing and bought my first ounce. And that was the end of that story. Well, beginning of that story, I guess I should say. But post college, I moved out to California. I was actually working in advertising and then in the music industry. Like everyone or most people in LA, the music kind of had a producer turn on me. And as I was down to my last bits in LA, my roommate ordered from a company called Herb in downtown LA at the time. And I had a motorcycle, and the guy brought the weed on the motorcycle. And my roommate was like, "Hey, dude, like if you need some help, why don't you call these guys? Like it's like you use cannabis all the time. Like you never even brought up working in the cannabis industry. You just kind of been pushing this other direction for so long, and I've seen you kind of exhaust yourself at it. Call these guys and give it a shot." So that was how I got back in, or really into the legal side of the cannabis industry in California. Was delivery driving on a motorcycle, which
Nice.
was cash only at the time. I think you were supposed to have a lockbox on the back of your car, so I don't even know if the motorcycle was technically compliant at the time, but that was what I did. I was zipping around, and through that, and not even a couple months in, probably, I met someone on the heavy hitters team and got brought onto their sales team as a brand ambassador. And then it just kind of quickly happened where, again, 3 months later, and I hated to do this, which is I think why I stayed at Ispire for so long after. I kept getting poached, right? I was at Heavy Hitters. They trained me, brought me on, and like that's an awesome brand, right? I got knuckle tats, like I fit the whole mold. It's like a good brand ambassador for them, but they had a current VP at the time who took me with her to a startup. So she wanted me to come be her first salesperson, and you couldn't turn that down. When the door opens like that, and someone's willing to bring you with them, you should go, right? As much as I love that brand, it's cool that they still have so many people on the team there. Like I still see them out in New York, and it was like the same crew that was there like almost 8 years ago now.
That's
But
awesome.
from that, I just kind of evolved up, right? And from going from heavy hitters to a micro business in downtown LA, that's where I learned a lot more about just showing up at the shops in the dispensary world, because that's where you can produce products. You're bringing in flower, you're going out and sourcing wholesale, and then looking at distributing and producing for brands, which was a whole different world. And I stayed there for about 2.5 years before getting poached to go to iSpire from my good friend Jeff Duran. And that was, I think, the greatest thing that happened to me so far in my professional career was that phone call from him letting me know he had an opportunity. And he brought me in a month before him. So, like, if your homie invites you to a new company, right? And he's like one of your good friends, you trust him implicitly. He's like, I'll be there in a month, right? And this is like, it was a nice office on Abbot Kinney in Venice. And I didn't know what Chinese New Year was like fully yet, because we experienced it with the micro business, but on like the purchasing side, not like my own business not being there, right? So I showed up in this nice office, and my first day I started was February 1st, 2021. And this was like that's like right when Chinese New Year starts, the end of January, early February. So he told me it's a really large factory. There's like almost 1 million square feet of manufacturing space between multiple factories in China. And it's like, okay, great. Like this is like fresh startup. So it was like Luna and a few other people there. That's it. There was like no furniture or anything in this place. All that was in there was like a shuffleboard table that was like built into the floor in this like super dope office.
Nice.
Okay.
Very
But like,
startup
and I
y.
met Luna. Luna's great, super passionate, knows cannabis, right? But like it was so early on in the business that there wasn't like a product catalog. We didn't have full samples there yet. So now I'm sitting there and like a week, 2 weeks in, like, where is everything? And I hit my buddy
Yeah,
up and I'm like, dude, did you bring me into a Ponzi scheme? Because like this is
yeah,
really
yeah.
what it feels like. I'm like, it's a really nice office, but like, where is everyone? Where's this factory you're talking about? And he was like, oh, dude, no one's told you. Like, it's like, yeah, it's the middle of Chinese New Year. They'll be back online in like a week or two, and then like the whole world changed, right? But through that experience, I was able to go travel the world and meet so many different ancillary vendors where I got to experience how markets move and how different pieces of the industry feed each other. 20 plus states, 6 different countries in that time with iSpire, like that type of experience, if you use it properly and actually go out and learn, is invaluable.
Yeah. Yeah. How did iSpire get started? I guess just kind of like behind the curtain. Like, was it like who was the ownership team? Like, how early? How did they know to bring in your kind of mentor person at the first? Like, what were they trying to build? Because it seems like they clearly were successful, but it's like, how do they come up with the concept of iSpy? I guess that's kind of really my question because it seems kind of unique. Where it's like, or at least now I run into hardware companies quite a bit, but like when I first started learning about it, it's like I like global business. I find it very interesting. I have a minor in it from when I went to school, and so I guess like tell me a little bit about iSpire and then their connection because it was like your first exposure of like global business. We secure hardware here, we sell it in this market. It's cheaper to manufacture here. We can sell it for a markup here. It's like that's how global business is done. That's why we do it that way. But I guess it's like what was some of the early concepts of iSpire? Who thought of it? And then I guess just like what was it like building it from the ground up? Like kind of just the systems and the workflows, and because like you said, you started with an empty office, which is like pretty rare.
The blank canvas. It wasn't completely blank. So the company was actually originally built as a nicotine business. So the founder was
Okay.
a gentleman named Tony Liu, who back in 2013 was one of the original e-cigarettes that ever came over to North America. So like those large mod tanks, I still see a bunch of. It's called Aspire with an A up front. I still see a bunch of their products in almost every gas station you go into. Smoke shops, they're all over the place still. They have it's called the Nautilus. Like it's in every single smoke shop still. It's this over 10-year-old technology that's still top of the line.
He was ahead of his time.
So he's known as the mod father over in China because of this. And, he left a legacy in that market. And iSpire was launched to be the cannabis division of that, looking to leave a legacy in both sides of the vape space.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I don't really remember when we first crossed paths, but definitely, we've been to different markets together as well. And I agree. It's like once you start looking at the industry is like an industry, and holistically, and then even a global industry. The whole kind of thing starts to open up a little bit. But I guess, but you do start to notice patterns. I guess what I was saying. It's like, so I remember Michigan in '09, like first going up to that medical market, being like, wow, this is wild. And then Colorado again, but it's like, then Oregon, and like you do start to see these patterns. Obviously, you've been in with iSpire and then kind of with the Plug Society, but having been to many different states and countries and just different markets, what business patterns have you noticed that repeat when a new market opens?
Yeah, a lot of it follows product cycle. Well, first is the waiting game. Everyone gets their licenses and they get super excited, thinking that they're going to be in business in like 90 days and there's going to be this huge rush of money. But then the regulators aren't set up, the state authorities aren't set up to do their audits, and it takes sometimes years to build out the facilities and get up to code.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the largest misconception and most common pattern I see is the long build to get going. It's always a couple year runway, it seems. And then there's a cyclical pattern of how products come to market. Obviously, everything has to stem from flower. So that is naturally the first thing that comes to market is prepackaged flower and pre-rolls. And then from there, once markets start maturing, processing labs get on board, then you start moving into your vapes, your gummies, your beverages, and then the products expand, extracts. Products expand from there. But that usually takes a little while too. And then you look at medical markets flipping over to recreational markets. What does that look like in terms of product SKUs too? Because most things on the market, not yet. Now that we're rescheduled, we could probably start studying these more. But You know, when you look at a dab versus a joint, is that more medicinal because there's less, we'll call it compounds we can't ingest in there, right? If our body has an endocannabinoid system and we can ingest those compounds, and an extract is 92% total cannabinoids and terps, but the flower is only 30%, what's the other 70%? And is that worse for my body? Like those things aren't really known yet, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting. And medical markets know a little bit more than others. There's other trends I've seen. Like you look at Pennsylvania and Florida, they put terpene percentages on their packaging, and their consumers ask questions about it. So the bud tenders are naturally have to know because they're now empowered to go educate as well. And I'm sure they want to ask too, like because everyone wants high percentages everywhere else, but you know how it works, right? If you want higher
Yeah,
terps,
yeah.
THC is going to come down. But now they know that. So like if everyone would like if everyone put that on the package, I think over time it would drive this narrative of education quicker. But it's funny to me that no one's done that yet because we all throw our hands up in the air about this. Why is everyone so concerned about the percentage? I'm like, well, then put two on there.
Right.
Make them concerned about both.
Yeah, yeah, that's a real
That'll
thing.
beg
It's
the
like,
question. And I'll jump back into the other cycles I see too. So, like, you know, as products expand, depending on how many licenses the state allowed, there are patterns that can exist. When you look at a market like Oklahoma, where it made it really easy to buy a license, right? I think it was like $2,500 you could purchase a license. So, like,
yeah,
everyone and their cousin went out and bought a license in Oklahoma, and then they overproduced, and the market had to adjust itself over time. Other markets that were limited license, I think early on, have done a good job of trying to gauge demand. Thankful to other states and actually looking at what other people have done, you know, based on population, how many stores do you need? And then
yeah,
a lot of states that were surrounded by other states that weren't recreational or medically legal, you know, like Missouri, Michigan, those ones took off. They have these border dispensaries that became the largest grossing dispensaries in the country out of thin air, pushed Michigan into the number one market for a short time there. And there's going to be other markets that pop up like this. But when people invest, and like I worry about this in Michigan right now too, watching the curves of these markets because it's a mature market. We've compressed at this point where almost every corner has been cut for competitive nature. Everyone's using a Mylar bag pretty much for their packaging because you have to.
yeah.
Like everything got so price compressed, and they did a good job keeping the black market up. Like I understand why they wanted to do this. They didn't want big business play. They didn't want MSOs to come into the state, and they really wanted to control safe cannabis in the state. On that regard, it was good. But when you have these like super mature markets like that, there's inevitably going to be this race to the bottom, and that is like that's the worst problem that exists in every single market we have in the U.S. is the price shopping when it comes to the bottom, which leads to why I started lobbying. When that happens, people start shopping at the
Yeah.
labs because of this whole percentage problem. And that is the why I can't sleep at night, because this is an inevitable problem as business just becomes competitive in a market, as licenses become evened out and there's a playing field of competitiveness. Then I need a higher percentage than the next guy, or I can't have this batch fail because it'll ruin my business. So they go to a lab that allows it. And eventually good labs get worked out and bad labs have to exist. It's a crazy cyclical problem.
I was gonna say that is a good segue into the kind of your lobbying efforts. I enjoyed kind of just hearing about like your experience in DC and what it is actually like going to building. But I guess kind of just at a high level, yeah, let's talk about the internal struggles of the cannabis industry. It's and every industry has struggles. So that's kind of like we're not trying to cast shade. It's just business is hard. 4 out of 5 fail. If you know, listen to the statistic that's thrown around in the first 5 years. So it's like regardless of what industry you're in, this is tough, and that's okay. You know, that's how it should be. It's like a sport. It's like sports are tough. That's how they're supposed to be. But between the hemp policy change, obviously you're in Michigan where like every state's, you know, there's the federal taxes, you know, everybody's worried about 280E at the federal level. Most states have decoupled from it. But then every state and local tax, they do whatever they want. And they're just like, Michigan is a prime example where they're like, 24%. Like that should go to those people. And it's just like, Why? So anyway, so there's, it's heavily regulated, it's highly taxed. It's still like we were just talking off camera because of it being federally illegal still, we don't have access to a lot of traditional things like banks, insurance, and there's definitely a lot of vendors, and I love all the vendors that serve the cannabis industry. Like I'm one of them. But there is some companies require bigger vendors or more sophisticated vendors, and we don't want turnover. Like we just had a PEO firm get bought out by a much larger PEO firm, so now they don't serve cannabis. So now we got to figure out benefits for a whole workforce, and it's like that doesn't really happen when your industry isn't federally illegal. So lots of things that could improve, but I guess just from your perspective, like what industry problems hurt the operators the most? Because obviously, like we're ancillary service providers, but like the operators who are licensed, growing the product, selling it, like they're the most important. So I guess like what hurts the operators more, like bad laws or bad business decisions? Kind of like what's been your experience or your hot take?
I think what hurts them the most is knee-jerk changes in legislation. Because if you gave someone a runway to change, even if it was small or large change, and they could plan to adapt, it would be a lot easier than this is what's happening in 90 days, which happens the most of the time. I think that'd be the main thing. Is just I don't think it's ever communicated in a good enough fashion. There's this internal angst that always exists between regulators and operators, mainly because a lot of the guys were ex-prosecutors and whatnot. And they're all calling them cops and yelling at them from the stage, but it shouldn't be like that, right? And this was the same
Yeah.
thing with going and talking to the legislators. Like they want to be educated, right? But there's
Yeah.
this like innate thought that they're against us for some reason, and that is another cyclical problem I've seen
Yeah, I'm guilty of that thought too
our
sometimes.
industry,
Like,
right? Well, no, we have a lot of infighting. Look, you have
yeah.
hemp and THC, or like hemp and well, it's all cannabis. So you have hemp and THC cannabis, right? But there's that infighting of like you didn't fight for your licenses, you came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
In a happy world, if your brand is big enough, one of the licenses should want to work with you anyway, and we should all play in collaboration in the sandbox together. But that's
But
just
we
my
don't live in
thought.
a perfect world, do we?
We don't live in a perfect world. No, we do not. One day, I'm working on it. But what really drew me into, I mean, I went to DC for the first time toward the end of
Yeah,
summer.
let's tell people about that experience a little bit. Like, what made you want to go there? This is a good segue into kind of what you've been about, and then, yeah, tell them about the hallways and whatnot,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
I know
yeah,
some
yeah,
reason
for
I just
sure.
find that fascinating.
It's a really cool experience. Yeah.
It made me want to go lobby a little bit. I'm like, I might tag along with Christy and go see what all this lobbying's about.
Well,
But
let me
but
know
yeah,
if you're
tell
gonna
us
be out
about
there,
what
dude.
brought you to
I'll
it.
come with you. We can make a full trip of it. So, I originally went out. My friend Holden from Camaraderie Group. Not sure if you know him or not yet, but
Yeah, yeah, he's
yeah,
solid.
Holden's a good guy. He was hosting a dinner, private dinner in Virginia at his brother's restaurant ahead of the PBC conference in DC.
Nice.
So I planned on heading out there for that show, and then also was going out to attend. Oh, there's so many shows back to back. I don't remember. I think it might have been an MJ Unpacked or an ECAN or something out on the East Coast. And I went to this dinner, and this was like before I actually got to DC proper, right? I like dropped my stuff off at the hotel. I guess that was proper, but I was only there for like a second. And I go to this dinner. And that was where I met a bunch of people. I sat next to Adam from Can of Spyglass. I met Jerry from Figro, who I'm working with now. I really got to know Jeremy from Risk Strategy. So I sat next to him on the bus ride. And like we'd known each other for years, but never got that like, let's not talk work. Let's just be homies for 45 minutes.
Yep,
So
yep.
that was like one of the best dinners I've ever been to just from those things. But then the guy sitting across from me kind of learned what I was building, what I was doing, told him how excited I was to be in DC. His name's Morgan Fox. He's the political director over at Normal. And he looked at me at one point and he was like, you ever thought about lobbying? And I have in the past, right? And like most people get so busy in their day to day that they never. I'll get to it. When I get time, I'll do it, right? And I was that
Yeah,
guy. I'm not calling anybody out.
I
Like,
agree
everybody's
with you.
like that, right? We never finish our plates. We just keep getting a bigger plate.
Yeah.
That's just how life goes. And I kind of like realized that like, well, you're here, you're around all these people that could guide you into this if you wanted to do it. And someone just gave you the door again, this proverbial door we'll talk about. And he introduced me to a gentleman named Yasha Khan, who works with MCR Labs. And Yasha had plotted, he's the one who exposed me to this current problem we have with consumer safety for cannabis. Yasha plotted years of testing data from several different states And you can see the cliffs of all the data of when regulations were moved. Some of them were like 10xing the amounts of microbials in the state. And it's like every test was hitting the bar. And as soon as they allowed a 10x threshold, everything was hitting the bar again. So it's like, well, clearly the lab is just putting things at the threshold because the flower didn't change. It's the same flower. So you're looking at all these different patterns of like which states have actually done right, and several have, but honestly, most haven't. And some medical markets are out there without safety standards, and this is a problem. And there's organizations, trade associations who've done a lot of research on this for years. ASTM is one of them. Like they have the sauce when it comes time to do it, but there's not enough people aware of the problem. That there even is an issue, that we have 41 states here in the US, but we have 20 plus regulatory models and 20 plus safety standards. Yeah. So once I saw this data, I was like, I already have trouble sleeping at night. So I knew I had to do something about it. After the Ignite It show, I planned to do some drop-ins. Jen from Hybrid Marketing kind of gave me my 101 of how to go in there. I made my little 5x7 flyers, stapled my business card to them. I was going to go do drop-ins. So she gave me the schooling on how to build that. And Morgan took me out to do my first few doors. He booked me a meeting with one of the senators here from Michigan, my home state. He gave me the pitch, and I parroted him for about 10 doors. He had to go hang with his kiddos. And I think he thought I was joking. I was like, I'm going to go hit 100 doors. We'll go do 100 drop-ins at least, because that's what I got in my stack here. And he was like, okay. He kind of nodded. And that's what I did. I went and dropped into 100 doors. And this is, I think, your favorite part of the story. So everyone has to go to DC. I want everyone to see this before these buildings go away.
Because we're all subject to politics. And I feel like I just thought it's like, I don't know. I guess I kind of didn't realize how human people were, like politicians were, and then like how old school DC is. It's like,
yes,
actually does make sense. But yeah, explain how you hit the doors. And then what were you dropping off at the doors, like just for the audience?
So like, yeah, I had a little 5x7. Actually, I might have one right here.
Because it's a real thing. It's like politicians they're not all bad people. Like some of them are just truly ignorant to the industry and like what's going on. Like we live in this world, but like 11% of the USA population like smokes weed on a regular basis. So like most people don't really care. So like you do literally need to go there and educate them of like, this is a problem, this is an issue.
Right.
Like
the hardest part with all of it is you just have to go on your own time, right? Yeah. You have to want to do it most of the time. So this is what Jen kind of told me to do. You get a little 5x7 flyer, informational. I had a QR code to my memorandum on there that was digital and ongoing. That way there's a leave behind you can always go in with. And the pitch was going in, letting them know who you were, what company you're with, where you're from, kind of a one sentence blurb about what you're trying to do, and then asking who on their legislative team handled drug policy. Some of them had no clue. And then you kind of, if it was a state that didn't have legal cannabis, they usually had no clue. So it usually fell into agriculture, health, or judiciary, which makes sense. It's in a hybrid world of those three where nothing else is. Everything else falls into one thing. Yeah. Which I thought was kind of cool too. That just kind of proves that cannabis is in a unique bubble of its own. The fact that it does fall into three different governmental sections. So it's interesting though. So these buildings, there's the Senate buildings and then there's the House buildings. And that Senate buildings are all connected underground, and the House buildings are all connected underground. So you go in, you go through security. It's a smaller line, but like everyone take your belt off, put your backpack in. Obviously, they need to keep things safe. Yep. Once you're in the building, though, so say you're in the House buildings, you got through security. You don't need to keep going through security to get to the other House buildings. There's underground tunnels to connect them, which I'd imagine, one, safety for the politicians, two, brutal cold rain. Like nobody wants to be going through that in suit and tie. I get it. Yeah. So the underground tunnels. So like the buildings upstairs are like old school DC, like the off-white walls, a lot of like stone, tall doors, and everything kind of looks like a dorm hall in a sense, because it looks very similar, but nice, very nice, right? But the underground tunnels, when I went down to the bottom, like this is the first experience. And this is like hustle bustle. This is where everybody's moving around. It was like brick doors, or a brick all the way down. So you got like perspective of brick in both directions. And there's like people flying in and out of doors and like coming out of left field. and they're all in like nice formal wear. Obviously, like the women are wearing business attire, and the men are all in suits and ties. And everyone's like they're on a mission because they're probably moving around from meeting to meeting. So it feels like you're in like the middle of like the train station at Harry Potter. There's like people just popping out of the brick and everywhere you look, right? And everyone's dressed up. So like that, and like it just kind of cracked me up, and I was like, "Wow, this is our government, right?" And I'm like following Morgan around. And then we went upstairs, and we started going into like some of these offices, and this is where I told you it felt like a dorm hall, right? So I went from Harry Potter back to like this like governmental college feel where all of the politicians have like flair on the outside of their door. Most of them do. So this is like around the holiday time. So some of them are set up for Christmas. Some had Hanukkah. Some had shrines of certain people outside their door, and just like some had post-it notes all over the wall of like people who wrote them things, like notes that were written into them. And I was like the post-it notes is where I was like, okay, this reminds me of college. So that's what I told you. It's like this is our government. Everyone needs to go check this out because you can just walk in. You don't have to have a government credential or anything. You can go in. The doors are closed most of the time, which is strange, but you look at the plaque on the door. It'll say who it is, what state they are. And I was going into ones that obviously had legal cannabis. You open the door and you walk in. But
there's just people outside,
like it's odd though because you're just like you're walking into it's a closed door. You don't like knock or do anything. You just walk in. Some are locked and like as if it's like a high profile politician, they won't let it like people just walk in sometimes, obviously for safety. That only happens
everybody
a few
wants to be a
times.
high profile politician, so I feel like once you have to start locking your door, it's like you made it.
I'm
just kidding.
Yeah, I mean, kind of.
Wait, so then you go in there, then is it just like a dude at a desk just being like, all right, Adam, come talk to me. I'm Senator such and such. You're like, how does it work?
Well, there's legislative aides. So usually don't get
usually
don't get the actual person. That'd be very rare. Even getting some of their like higher up aides that handle policy or whatever. I did run into a few of them and have a conversation on the spot, which was awesome. But more often than not, you're going to get a staffer or a newer aide to the office. The hardest thing that could ever happen to you, it happened a bunch, was when both of them are there on both sides of the office and you say hi to both of them. Because now when you're doing your pitch, who do you look at?
Yeah, that's a lot of
It's better to just commit to one and then say hi to the next one after. That's what I realized. Otherwise, you're doing this the whole time trying to.
Okay, and
I did 113 of these drop-ins between the House buildings and the Senate buildings during my first like pass while I was there.
Man, and I think there's going to be more stuff going on in DC. So I appreciate the breakdown of like what your experience was because now it doesn't seem so scary to me to go lobby. And I'm like, all right, there'll be other people there doing it. You just got to go walk around.
No, once you know what to say, what to ask for, and then it's all conversational because it's what you do and what you want. You know, and like the most important part of that trip to me was getting that feeling of I'm not doing this for myself. I'm not like there's no self-interest here. Like I'm doing this because I want to do it for the industry. And that drove me for the next like it was like almost 6 o'clock. And I asked them, I'm like, what time is this open or what time is this place closed? And they said everyone needs to be out by 7. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna keep going until I get 3 locked doors in a row. And that didn't happen until 6:47. So I stayed another hour. You know, and those types of feelings, when you find something that you can do that is larger than yourself, it's electrifying.
It truly is. And I think that's why I almost feel bad for some people who like purely see the cannabis industry as just another industry. Like, don't get me wrong, like from an accounting and finance, it is, but it's so unique. There's so much cultural aspects to it. It's coming out of prohibition. It like ties into all these pop culture elements with politics. It's like it's really interesting. And then if you actually care about the industry and the people in it, it's like, oh no, like you can like kind of enact change. And I used to definitely be much more against that of like, before I got into cannabis, it's like, this doesn't really affect my life. Like, just like live your life, work hard. Like, if you want something, go get it. But it's like in cannabis, it's like, no, like there's a lot of stuff that's out of your control. And like, and if you do start showing up, like you can enact a little bit of change. So no, I definitely have like 180 down like our ability to impact change with local politics. So I appreciate you kind of doing the lobbying thing because it's as much as everybody thinks it's like I was saying before offline, it's like people either think the cannabis industry is totally legal and like who cares, it's already a thing, or people are like, no, it's still illegal, it's this weird underground like pseudo legal, but not at all. And it's like, No, like there's still a lot to figure out and a lot to lobby forward, but like we made a ton of progress. It's like I remember when there was like yeah, like just Michigan and like and you guys like I think went legal before California even, but it was like you guys, Colorado, Oregon, and there was like 3 or 5 states that you could do this like legally and like within 10 years. Now we're in a completely different situation. I'm going to Berlin, in April and like gonna go check out cannabis in other countries now. And it's like all right, this is like becoming a way bigger thing, which I guess is a good segue into to kind of just the plug society. Kind of tell me a little bit about because you've seen products come to market, you've seen new markets open up. So just specifically the plug society, if I could plug the plug society, just tell me a little bit about like what's the main problem you're solving with the plug society, and just kind of educate people on where are you guys at right now with the plug society, and then what are you guys going to be building in 2026 here?
Yeah, so the problems that I saw, just again from going around 180 trade shows with iSpire, I want to say
Those
that's
are trade shows. Like that's like some people don't even talk to 180 different cannabis businesses because they're in their own business and their own market where you're like, dude, I've been to
we
180
went
different
to everything.
events,
The first year we did 40,
hundreds.
45 shows, and then it was just kind of like everywhere that would take us beyond that, local shows, events, whatever that was, we're just popping into everything. And then obviously that I kept that train going just because I was just used to that lifestyle. But I noticed that every vendor in the industry, every ancillary vendor who provides a product or service, are all going after really the same buckets of people. It's brands, cultivators, processors, and retailers in general, scope it like that. And within those
Sure.
companies, there's different titles of folks that they're going after. So your COO, your CMO, CRO, CEO, your VP of procurement, your lab director, cultivation director. And all these are kind of tailored, right? But there's a huge problem in the supply chain. And why I think most people, why they don't like the supply chain is because it's extremely fragmented and there's a huge lack of accountability in our industry. I've watched a lot of people get burned by going to the wrong vendor, and most people don't have enough capital to fail forward once, let alone twice. And I've watched a lot of really good people trying to build a business the right way, make one wrong move or two wrong moves, and then have to sell their assets, and they
Yeah.
never get what it should have been worth, or not knowing how many puzzle pieces went into building their processing lab. Like there's 60 vendors you're going to need to do that, from your accounting to your PPE to your GMP flooring, your contractor, your security cameras, your edibles, potentially your vape pens, your vape machines. Like there's a ton that's going to go into this, right?
Yeah.
People don't know ahead of time how to plan for that. They're going to run into a problem eventually. So project planning was the first part. Project management is the second part, and then accountability through the deal-based rating system is the third part. So those are the three problems that we're really trying to clean up by centralizing the supply chain in one place, bringing trusted vendors like you guys into the fold. So no matter what anyone needed, if they came in and needed accounting services, if they needed HR and payroll, maybe they're looking for someone to help them make topicals. Great, we can connect you with a trusted vendor, help you project manage that through, and when that deal's done, you get to rate them, they get to rate you, and what you alluded to earlier and what most people gravitate toward understanding is now we can build this Angie's List or Yelp of trust where people can go find vendors in the space based on actual actions and deals rather than someone going on and sabotaging someone on a Reddit thread. It should be like an Airbnb or an Uber where how we do business and how we hold ourselves is how we're represented in our rating.
No, that's and obviously yeah, easier said than done, but it what you're doing like it does totally make sense because it's like it's such a unique industry where it's like even if it's like wasn't coming out of prohibition, the fact that it's only like 20 years old legally, it's like and most companies are less than 5 to 10 years old. It's like they don't have vendor relationships that go back decades. Like I'd worked for like a 125-year-old company, and it's like a lot of our vendors have been our vendor for aluminum or XYZ engineering when we're doing this type of facilities since like the 70s or 80s. And so it's like you have so much more to your point of like data to look back on of like vetted providers. All right, you can kind of just look at them. It's like, all right, they're probably good at what they do. They've been an engineering firm for 50 years. Whereas like cannabis doesn't have any of that. It's like you have like, especially if you're like a company created just for cannabis, it's like, all right, well, you're probably as old as cannabis, so like 5 to 10. And so having kind of some of that like centralized hub, I think definitely helps. And I guess kind of from like I'm just picturing like an asset light brand because I know they're you know, I feel like when cannabis got started like 10, 15 years ago, like project management wasn't such a concern because the business models were so basic. It was like
Mhm.
we grow flower, we turn it into some type of product and we sell it to retail. Like I'm not sourcing things from China. Like I'm very straightforward. And it's like even extracting back in the day, it's like it was concentrates, it was dabs. Like that's how you did it. It's like
Biggest effort in cannabis is forecasting, and it will be for
yeah.
a little while longer.
And yeah, but now we're like at a much more different game where it's like, A, the businesses are much bigger, so they're much more sophisticated. They're bringing much more different products to market. And to your point, like the products are more refined and they're like, they take more engineering. And so, I guess from that perspective, how have you seen kind of operators who are trying to bring products to market? Like, what is some of their bigger bottlenecks? Like, are they struggling to find just the hardware? Are they struggling to find consistent, medicated product to put in their hardware? Are they struggling to find distribution in the new market? Like, what's kind of the bottleneck for people trying to bring just a new product to market and then maybe bring a new product to market in a new market? So it
Yeah,
seems,
across the board, it's I think trusted people is if you work with anyone you can trust, you're not going to run into issues. They're always going to pick up the phone, no matter if that's delivery, logistics, manufacturing. Like I've seen people not uphold their product warranties for people, and it cripples a business, especially on the vape side when your return on investment doesn't come for so long, and manufacturing takes 2 months to get you the products. Like there's
yeah, it's got to be
depending on the
very good.
products and how their business model is, like if they're asset light, it's going to be distribution that's usually an issue for them, sales team, because it's not their people. So it fluctuates based on their business model, what they need. But the main thing I've seen in the last recent 6 months was people staying in their lanes rather than trying to be the jack of all trades, seeing the most success. Even watching vendors partner together in tech stacks where it's here's 5 vendors working together. That's kind of what we're doing too, right? Building the foundation of this. Eventually, I'd love to have every vendor apply and be on here, but while I'm doing fractional business development for my homies and the people that I know are going to do right by the industry, this is the way we're building it with the best in the game. So
That's
that's what we're
great.
doing this year to kind of wrap up, because I know I'm kind of coming up on time. But
Yeah, yeah, I want to get you out of here.
this year, it's bringing on more vendors organically, slowly. I never want to get ahead of the skis and not provide value back to those who've helped us build this far. The more operators we can, I'm going to hit 30 plus shows like I committed to you guys, starting at the end of this month in early February. Doing a lot of lead gen online, and then getting more brands, cultivators, processors, and retailers into this circle of trust so we can help them, whether that's meeting them in person, having vendors help vendors. All of our vendor calls have been so fun, doing these podcasts just to get more actual FaceTime and less chat GPT in the thread so people can actually hear about what you do and what you love. That's what's on the docket for this year.
I appreciate that. Bringing more humanness back to the business. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we
Well,
need it.
yeah, we do. Thanks so much for your time, Adam. Obviously, we could talk all day, but we got to get
Let's
back
do,
to
let's
work.
do another
So
one of these again soon, because our conversations are always good.
for sure. All right, brother. I'll talk to you later.